But now he's bringing in his brother.
Wasn't he supposed to be just Jeb? Anyway, we're going to get to the GOP in a minute, but I want to start with the Clintons and Sanders. Joining me right now, political strategist Matt Schlapp and Emily Tisch-Sussman. Good to see you guys. Emily, what's the deal here? This sudden love that Hillary has for President Obama. Is this a direct attempt to court black voters who may like President Obama very much?
Look, there is no question that President Obama is still very popular in many parts of the country, I think particularly with communities of color. And that's partly what Clinton is doing by bringing up her support of many of his policies just before going into the South Carolina debate, the primary. Look, the last two states have been a real surprise by how well Sanders has done. But part of that is because those are Iowa and New Hampshire are two of the whitest states in the country. Sanders has one message. His one message is Wall Street, right? It's anti-Wall Street. That is a message that plays much better with white voters than with voters of color.
He's been soliciting support from the African-American community. And Matt, are they going to listen?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that Bernie Sanders has all the energy, all the enthusiasm. He has the young folks are with him. And the fact is it's a little bit of an anomaly that he hasn't been able to demonstrate some support in these communities of color with African-American voters and with others. And I think that they like what Bernie is saying. I actually think this Wall Street message works. They feel like they are not getting what they deserve in this economy and this society if you're a Democratic voter in that liberal base. And I think Bernie just appeals to them.
All right. You know, Black Lives Matter, it's a movement that has really caught on in the African-American community and one that Bernie Sanders seems to be trying to talk to in his quest for the presidency. Let's watch him here in the debate last night talking about Black Lives Matter.
I would hope that we could all agree that we are sick and tired of seeing videos on television of unarmed people, often African Americans, shot by police officers.
Okay, so you couple this with also Hillary's message, which includes a commercial that's being run in South Carolina. If we have a portion of that, I'll also show you this. Here we go.
When too many encounters with law enforcement, and tragically, we need investments in education, health care, and jobs to counter generations of neglect. We have to face up to the hard truth of injustice and systemic racism.
You know, here's the problem, though, Matt. Heather McDonald actually has a very interesting op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today about this issue, and she cites some statistics from the Washington Post which basically show that whites and Hispanics have been killed at the hands of police officers far more than black Americans. 662 white and Hispanics have been murdered by police officers, killed by police officers, versus 258 blacks. And so the point she's making is the Black Lives Matter movement really is more about politics than it is about substance. Nonetheless, you need African Americans in South Carolina. Who's going to carry this message better to them, Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton?
Look, it's a great that is a great question. And if you talk to all the Democratic operatives and you talk to people who are invested in these southern states as we move from South Carolina into the other southern states, you know, Hillary Clinton has the clear advantage with African American voters. But the question is for all those voters is this: is she really connecting to them? And I don't think she is. And by the way, Trish, this theme of Black Lives Matter, you know what also matters? Blue lives matter and all lives matter. And this is a terrible thematic for them moving into the general election, where Americans, I think, have a much more fair understanding of what actually happens on the streets.
Yeah, that's a very good point about how it plays in a general election. Back to the whole issue of inequality and Wall Street, something that Bernie Sanders keeps harping on. I think the problem, though, Emily, for her is that she's got some weaknesses out there. I mean, you think about the $4.1 million that she made in speaking fees off of Wall Street banks in 2 years' time. I mean, how does she peddle that one back when she's trying to say, I'm going to go after Wall Street, I'm going to rein in Wall Street, but at the same time took all these speaking fees, $4.1 million worth?
Look, and her response to that has been, like, to show where there is a policy that has been, where the Wall Street has influenced her. She feels she has stood against it. That actually had been an attack on the President Obama. He led on Wall Street reform. So it's not actually very clear that it's connecting there. But nevertheless, that is Sanders' message. That is his core message. And I think that actually gets to a little bit of trouble as to why he has trouble connecting with communities of color, because his core message is economic instability, right? Like, it has nothing, he will never acknowledge systematic racial instability. And so that's why he has trouble connecting. Like, he just keeps hammering it over and over.
He was acknowledging racial instability last night. I mean, and it's going to be more and more as we move south here, and he needs to court these voters. Matt, another interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal today. Great paper. Everybody should check it out.
My favorite paper.
Op-ed that basically said the problem here for Hillary Clinton is that she's a lousy candidate. People just don't really like her. And now all of a sudden the Democrats are stepping back and they're saying, my gosh, the emperor has no clothes. The idea that a socialist can come out of nowhere and give her such a run for her money, what is that telling us about how she's going to fare if she is actually the nominee?
Look, this is openly talked about amongst Democrats. They are incredibly worried about how fragile she is, how weak she is. The real question for Democrats, it's much like after we had 2 terms of Ronald Reagan as Republicans. They're wondering who's going to take the Obama torch and be able to carry it to the American people. And Hillary Clinton is looking more and more like someone who can't quite grab that torch. Bernie has all the energy. He has all the excitement. Yes, he has hurdles. But this question of the fragility and weakness of the Hillary Clinton candidacy is a huge problem for Democrats.
Yeah, you know, the other, going back to how we started this whole conversation, the other problem that she has and that she's got to be able to overcome is the fact that she was part of Obama's team. And nobody's really that happy with President Obama right now. You look at the economy, you look at where we are internationally, and we don't have a whole lot to brag about. So for her to get up there and mention President Obama 21 times and really espouse that love for him, I think, Emily, she's going to have to distance herself from this guy if she actually wants to win the actual presidency of the United States. What do you say?
Look, I think there's no question that she's always had her own platform. I think there are pieces of President Obama's legacy that she will be attempting to continue on. But look, she ran for president already. Like, she's always had her own platform. So I think that she'll be able to strongly stand on that. But, you know, the question as to whether she's fragile or not, look, she's been under attack in the public eye for decades. Sanders is relatively unknown. So I think there's a real question as to how long he could stand up under public pressure. Look, I think it's actually pretty remarkable that she's still this popular by the fact that she has been under decades and decades of public attack.
I agree with you.
A lot for her. I mean, is she just sort of the anointed one where the party says, okay, we've got to do this, we owe it to her?
I am surprised she's this popular too, Trish. I mean, with the position she's taken and the way she has run for president. I mean, it's not that she's fragile in the sense that she's a weak person. She is a candidate that is afraid to take all of the questions from the press, to really go out there and answer all the questions. She went to a grammar school and had to get the questions handed to her ahead of time. I mean, this is pathetic.
But she has to think about how she's going to answer everything, and that's the problem. People want authenticity. They want someone who's going to come out slamming and say, you know what, socialism is not what we're about. But she won't do that. She won't take that head on, and I think therein lies her problem. Matt and Emily, thank you so much.